to definitely say something concerning what we should be about and to inspire and to strengthen, because the words of Yahweh God is to give strength and to give awareness, because as it says in Psalm um, in the Psalm 19, it says that by these things are thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. When we understand that Yahweh God says in Psalm 19, verse 10, he said, more to be desired than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey in the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. And Yahweh God was saying that he was pertaining that these things of the Torah of Yahweh is perfect, and it said it converts the soul, meaning changing. The testimony of Yahweh is short, make it wise is simple. In other words, those things that Yahweh has said, they will make wise and simple. This is the testimony of Yahweh. The statue of Yahweh right, rejoicing the heart. Yahweh is saying that each of these things bring about a understanding, and in his own merit it breathes forth a gift. The commandments of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of Yahweh is clean, enduring forever. The judgment of Yahweh are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired they than gold, yea, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey in the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is, he says, in keeping these things, it is great reward. It's a great reward. And he goes on to inspire us to search the scriptures so that we might grow wise and not fall victim to the plans and whims of those that will say things to us, but it may not be true. That's why in Isaiah 8, verse 20, there's a great thing that is mentioned so that we will not be, that we won't be steered away from the truth. And it says here, the Torah, to the Torah and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. He says to the Torah, to the law, and to the testimony. He says this very clear. He said to the law and to the testimony, if they speak not according to this, there is no light in them. This is a warning to how we will set our judgment. Because Yahweh God makes total reference of what he did for the children of Israel. And he mentions it clearly so that we as Israelites won't fall by the wayside. He says here, for he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a Torah in Israel. He said that when Yahweh God wanted the children of Israel to know something, he told them to make it certain things clear. And therefore, in his clarity, he said, for he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a Torah in Israel. That's why he said, because these are the things that agrees to you, because you are what? He says, that he appointed a Torah in Israel and established a testimony in Jacob. Israel and Jacob are two of the same people. And he says here, to the Torah and to the testimony, because these things were established. That's why he says, for he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a Torah in Israel, which he commanded, go ahead, which he commanded our fathers, that they will make them known to their children. See, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born. He said this was a duty that we were supposed to do. And it says here, who shall arise and declare them to their children? That their children might set their, in the Hebrew it says confidence in Elohim, but it said hope. And not forget the works of Elohim. In other words, this is supposed to be you're supposed to reestablish through utterance, repeating. And therefore, these words of our ancestry that was given to us is still in effect that we are supposed to teach. And that's why in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou risest up, and when thou walkest, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. He said, you're supposed to do this, because who will arise? Who will declare these things to the children? And Yahweh God, who has brought the children of Israel into this country, that they would be punished, would begin to be selective on how this would come about. Yahweh God would work a work in the eyes of the people. That's why in Isaiah 28, verse 9, he says what?
28 verse 9. Whom shall I teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine?
Yes, the doctrine. He says that whom shall he teach knowledge? Why knowledge? Because the knowledge has a relation to his people. Because in Hosea chapter 4 it says, my people were destroyed for a lack of what?
No.
That's right. So he's reinstating. That's why he said, whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Why did he say this? Read verse 11.
For with clamoring lips and another tongue will I speak to his people.
So he's saying that with stammering tongue, he's going to speak to this people because it's not their language. He said, I will impart to you a knowledge in another tongue. And this knowledge would do what for you? Let's go to verse 12.
For whom shall he say, this is the rest, wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest.
That's right. So he said, because we are weary people. He said, this would cause you to rest. This knowledge. And how will you come to this rest would determine how you understand it for your good. And therefore, when we look and search for the rest that we seek, because see, there's only one rest. And Yahweh God says, and then he says here, in Exodus chapter 31, there's only one rest. And let's go to verse 17 of Exodus chapter 31, verse 17.
And it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed.
That's right. So what did he do? Let's go to 16. Let's read down.
Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in the 6 days the Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed.
Yes, he said this is the refresher. The Sabbath is the refresher. It is to stimulate a new thought in you. The Sabbath is your sign. As it says here, speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, verily my Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know, not believe. See, the point about it is that how do you know something? There is only one way to know anything, and that is to experience it firsthand, and not only that, to be conscious, because as it says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, it says, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. And if you prove something, then you no longer believe it, you know it. And this keeps certain things from occurring that would occur, because when you know something to be absolute truth, then as it says so clearly in Proverbs 16, there is a way that seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. He said it has to be that enticing, visually enticing, that you see it and hear it and give a testimony to yourself that this, what you see, is right. But to keep it from being misled, it said prove it. You have to be able to prove it so that it will take the proper shape, and therefore it is recognized. The children of Israel going into captivity, that one word captivity was the key to open up and allow them to recognize. Because when you look up captivity, it's by force. And therefore, when you look at you in this country, you came by force. You are a captive people. Your language, the customs, has been taken from you to be given back to you at certain times that has been appointed by Yahweh God to awaken you. Your sons and your daughters are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Those children that are rebellious, that do not listen, that as it says in the book of Leviticus, and it says it very clearly, it says that what would transpire with your children that would be naughty unyielding to discipline. Leviticus 26, verse 39. Verse Leviticus 26, verse 39.
And ye shall eat the flesh of your sons.
Leviticus
It says,
26, verse 39.
and they that are left of you shall pine away.
Okay, aren't we the remnant? We have been left. So what pine away means to be weakened. Go ahead.
In their iniquity.
And aren't they doing that right now? In their iniquity, what they continue to do. Their own iniquity.
Right.
This is what the children is doing. They're pining away in their iniquity. Go ahead.
In your enemy's land.
That's right.
Also
What it say? This is the land of your enemy. They do not like you. It says here in Leviticus 26:17, and I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you. So what he's saying here, he's saying that you will be destroyed in your enemy's land for your what? He said, they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquities in your enemy's land. Go ahead.
And also in the iniquities of their fathers, so they pine away with them.
That's right. See, we have the same thing our forefathers have done that didn't rise up to correct us, that didn't rise up to give us a discipline that we might be able to know who we are. The thing is that this is by a selection of the Ruach of Yah. You ain't getting through this if Yah don't help you. That's why it has said so clearly. And these things that are said that are not taken wholly, these things cause the people to error and fall. Let's go into Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. What does it say? Please.
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which Yahweh thy God giveth thee.
Yes, see, the children are not honoring their parents. Now, I don't know that would never believe that the parents want their child to encounter the situations by the child behavior that the parent itself has never taught that child to behave the way the children do. Because the children have no honor for the parent, then the children perish in their iniquity. You have to give that honor to the parents, whether it be one parent, whether it be no parent, but someone in authority that means you well, to give you direction, clothes, food, clothing, and shelter, so that you might mature correctly and not become a rebellious vessel to destruction, to your own destruction, knowing that you should not do certain things. And therefore, we give total respect to Yahweh God for teaching us to discern, giving us proper judgment. And therefore, when we look and see that that even when we look to understand that there be those that do not seek the true wisdom so that they might be exempt for the oncoming calamity. It is said in the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, It says, starting at Proverbs chapter 1, verse 20, wisdom cried without. She utters her voice in the streets. She cried in the chief places of the concourse, in the opening of the gates. In the city she utters her words, saying, how long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. See? They hate it. Turn ye at my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit upon you. I will make known my words unto you, because I have called, and ye refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no man regarded. But ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mark when your fear cometh, when your fear cometh as a desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hate knowledge, and did not choose the fear of Yahweh. They want none of my counsel. They despise my reproof. Therefore shall they eat the fruit of their own ways, and be full with their own devices. So Yahweh God has told them, he said, I will also laugh at your calamity. I will mark when your fear cometh. Because wisdom has called, stretching forth his hands that we might enter into safety. Yahweh God has given us, he has given us where we will find the luxury of peace. And he even told the people so clearly what they should do. He makes mention in this great and wonderful book what one should put their hands on so that they will not perish but find comfort in the turmoil that man has made upon this earth. In Isaiah chapter 50, verse 10, who is among you that feared Yahweh, that obeys the voice of his servant, that walketh in darkness and has no light? Let him trust in the name of Yahweh and stay upon his God. So Yahweh God has told you that who is among you that fear? That was one of the criteria of Israel. He said, Israel, fear me. For our good, that we might arrive safely in our journey through life. Yahweh God has made it so clear that no one is going to help us. He has told us our adversaries of those or of the people that say they have a truth. But Yahweh God said they have no truth, for they have done my people so much harm. This is written in this book. This is written that they have done us so, those that have robbed us, saying that they're here to teach us. And therefore, in their so-called teaching, they have laid a path of such turmoil and misunderstanding that the people can't find their way back because they so wholeheartedly trust in those that stand before them. As it says in Jeremiah 50, verse 6, he makes a mention that Yahweh's people, he said, my people,
have been lost sheep.
their shepherds
The shepherds have come meant
them
to go
astray.
astray. They have turned them away on the mountain. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have
Forgotten.
forgotten their resting place.
Yes, he says, my people, Yahweh said, my people are lost sheep. You understand what I'm saying? He said, my people are lost sheep. But he said that if they're lost, let them trust in his name. Who is among you that fear Yahweh, that obeys the voice of his servant, that walk in darkness, and has no light? Let him trust in the name. We being lost, we trust in the name of Yahweh God. Because he said, all that found them has devoured them. They all has devoured us. And the adversaries say, we offend not. They don't believe they offend. And it said, because they have sinned against Yahweh, the habitation of justice, even Yahweh, the hope of their fathers. So in they understanding your history, knowing that you have sinned, they feel that this is the right judgment that they proceed to administer as though they're doing God a favor. This is what they feel. They feel, man, to hang them, to take everything from them, to demoralize them, to put drugs in their community, they feel that they do God a great service. So the point is, this book is telling you, he said, if you are to find your way back, he said, what? He said, obey my servant. A servant that knows, that rise up to set in place an absolute truth of the knowledge of this book that can only come because Yahweh God has poured it into that vessel. And that vessel begins to bellow it out in giving a direction to those that have been in darkness. Giving them a discipline that they will find a straight and narrow path to go in. But this narrow and straight path is a path of what? Not a path of conflict, but a path of equilibrium and strength, because it is the righteous path. What we must do, we must keep the commandments of Yahweh God. There's no other way. There's no other way. To have meetings is not bad, depending upon what substance is the meeting about. The encouraging to keep the commandments is a great meeting. Any meeting that will encourage you to keep the commandments of Yahweh is most vital. Because that's why Yahweh said to the children of Israel, he makes mention so that they will do what he has said for their survival. And he makes mention, and everything that he makes mention, Yahweh does it for a reason, so that we don't feel alone. And what does he say? He said, gather yourself together, O nation not desired. He said, gather yourself together, even if it's in a short prayer, wishing each other well, encouraging each other so that you don't forget. That's what the ZCs were about, that we might wear it, and that we might see it, and that we might give remembrance to what we should be about. So we wear it so that those that will see it and know what it's about know that it is important. It is so important to remember. Yahweh don't want us to forget. So he's given us every tool so we can come and not forget him. Yahweh does not want us to forget him. So it is important that we do what is expected of us. That's why he said, gather yourself together. What? Not religion. He didn't say that. He said, gather yourself together. What? O nation not desired. Before the decree bring forward. He told you. Because this decree has gone out of the mouth of your God. And therefore, Yahweh God has told you that by you being together, you can strengthen each other when the circumstances seem to be grim. You know that the word of Yahweh has said something to you so that you might survive the circumstances that is present. Because someone will say, this is not for us, this is our freedom. And therefore, Yahweh God has said, he do not want us to be afraid. As we see these things come into the earth, Yahweh God does not want us to be afraid because these things are not against us. It is to help us out of the circumstances, putting the fear in the hearts of our enemies that has stripped us, and I mean stripped us of everything. So I'm just saying to you that the circumstances by which we read in this book is never to discourage. That's why I said, they have made the righteous sad, whom I have not made sad. The righteous must examine their righteousness and know that Yahweh God is not about doing these things against us, but Yahweh God is doing this against our enemies and those that have taken advantage of us. He's bringing upon them the same fear that they have brought upon us secretly. Yahweh God gonna bring it upon them openly, so that they will know that there is a deliverance, and Yahweh is here to deliver us. And we should be very thankful and grateful to Yahweh God, because without him, there is truly no help. So, in our understanding of these great and wonderful words, and we should be very thankful that Yahweh God has given this to us, because this is a time in our life that without the word of Yahweh God, we truly will perish. So, I like to think and leave you with something that I know will encourage the best out of you. And that is, we are truly the children of Israel. And that's something that you should prove all your days. You should wake up praying to Yahweh and thanking him for the deliverance that he has given you so generously in this country. You should see that everyone that is at war, they're at war over things that will never profit, because Yahweh God wants you to know you're Israel. And he has come and he has set a new spirit in the earth. A spirit that will free you. And that spirit wants you to recognize for yourself who you are. It wants you to come into harmony. And the only way you come into harmony is keeping of the commandments of Yahweh God. May Yahweh bless you and keep you and strengthen you. May the Spirit rest upon you. May you remember your God all the days of your life. Let nobody deter you from the things that belongs to you. Keeping of the commandments of Yahweh is your absolute duty by the covenant that our ancestors and we, even though we weren't there was an agreement even to those that was and to those that wasn't, and therefore we are obligated to keeping by the commandments of Yahweh God. So may the Spirit of your God, Yahweh God, who is God, rest upon you. May you love your God, Yahweh God, all the days of your life. Amen. I'd like to say shalom as we greet each other always in peace and wishing everybody the very best. And to determine that, we must know the word of Yahweh God, and to know for sure that he and he alone that has made the covenant with the children of Israel. I would like for you to read to understand that this covenant in which he has established with us is a covenant that even though we wasn't there, the agreement was of the covenant to make with those that was there and those of us that would be to come as we are here this day. So let us read in Deuteronomy chapter 29, starting at verse 14. Verse 29, verse 14.
And thou shalt not go inside.
Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that standeth here with us this day before Yahweh our God, and also with him that is not here with us this day. So Yahweh God made this covenant with us. And he says, Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 9.
Keep therefore the words of this covenant and do them, that ye may prosper in all that ye do.
So Yahweh God made this covenant with us, and it is a covenant of prosperity and righteousness. And I would like for us to start to show you that Yahweh God and how he rules and what he used to rule. Let's go to Psalm 33. Psalm 33 explains to you how Yahweh God made the universe. Psalm 33 verse 6. By the word of Yahweh was the heavens made, and all the hosts of them by the breath of his mouth. So we know by his word. And because it also says in Deuteronomy chapter 8, he makes a statement to further allow us to understand his movement in the earth is such, as he says in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 3, that ye might know, that he might make thee know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh, thus man liveth by. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with mammon, which thou knowest not. Neither did thy fathers know. He said, we did not know what Yahweh was doing. That he might make thee know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh, thus man liveth by. So he said that he made the heavens by his word. And he wanted Israel to understand that the significance of his word. Let's go into Isaiah 40. Isaiah 40 tells you exactly. Isaiah 40 verse 8 says, the grass withered, the flower faded, but the word of our God shall stand forever. He said, this word shall stand forever. Not sometime. This is a forever word. It also goes on to explain that it is the word that makes things happen. And therefore in Jeremiah 23, Yahweh God sets in motion to explain to you the power of his word. Jeremiah 23 verse 29, is not my word like as a fire, said Yahweh, and like a hammer that breaketh the rocks in pieces? So it is the word of our God that makes things happen. Even in Isaiah 50, Isaiah 50, 55, Isaiah 55 verse 11 says, So shall my word be that goeth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I send it. So Yahweh's word is that powerful. Yahweh's word is so powerful when we go into Psalm 107. Psalm 107. Psalm 107. Verse 20. He say, He sendeth his word and healeth them and delivered them from their destruction. This by Yahweh's word, because it is the word that impacts our life. It is the words that Yahweh God has said that means everything to us. And we should take it exactly how he has said it, because it is the words of our God that sets things in motion, that makes things be as they are. Because in Psalm 89, verse 34, he said, My covenant will I not break, nor alter the things that has gone out of my lips. So Yahweh God says that the covenant will I not break. He said, I'm not going to break that covenant, because it is the words of Yahweh and how Yahweh has established the earth. He said, I've sent my word and it healeth them. He says here in Psalm 56, Psalm 56, he makes mention, 56, verse 10 says, In Elohim will I praise his word. In Yahweh will I praise his word. Because the words is that essential for our very survival. It is the words that make it plain to us of the circumstances that is pending in the earth. We can find all things in the words of our God and how he is putting things in order. Because he says in Psalm 12, verse 6, Psalm 12, verse 6, he tells them,
The words of Yahweh are pure words, as silver tried in a furnace of earth.
That's right.
7 times.
That's right. He said, the word of Yahweh are pure words, as silver tried in the furnace of earth, purified 7 times. In other words, that's how pure his words. Even in the book, it says here, the words of Yahweh are pure words. But in the Psalm, in Proverbs 30, Yahweh God tells you and brings it down to the very essence, 30 verse 5, he tells you that every word is what? He said, every word of Yahweh is pure. He said every word, not some of it, not all. He said every word of his is pure. It goes on to Psalm 119. Psalm 119, to make mention that Yahweh's God's word, Psalm 119, 105, it says, Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. He said that word, this his word, is a lamp unto my feet. And as it says further on, it mentions even in the book of Proverbs. It says, For the commandment, which is the word, is a lamp, and the Torah is a light. So the words of our God, and that's in Proverbs, telling us what is necessary for us to be able to move through this sphere of our pilgrimage upon the earth. It is in the words of Yahweh God. In Psalm 47, see, you can't do nothing without the word of Yahweh God. And all his words are pure. And the Yahweh God is bringing you. In Psalm 47 verse 7, it says, for Elohim is the king of all the earth. He said he's the king of all the earth. He's the king of all the earth. See, it also says, why is he the king? Not only he's the king for all the earth, in Psalm 10, verse 16 says what? Yahweh is king forever and ever. Not only is he the king of all the earth, he is the king forever and ever. He's just not king for a short time. His kingdom rules forever and ever. Why? Let's go in the book of Ecclesiastes. Because we want to understand not only who we're dealing with, how it's being dealt with us, and what is the power of the king. It says, Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 4 says what?
Where the word of a king is, there is power. And who may say unto him, what doest thou?
Yeah, see, our God is king. And being that he's king, he's ruler of all. You know, and we should find out, how do we fit into this word of Yahweh God? How do we fit into where we know the position our God takes? His word permeates the whole entire creation because he created by his word. So let's go to show you how we fit and how we can fit into this great and awesome work of our God. But first we got to understand something, and I would like for you to turn to Psalm 62. Psalm 62 will begin to enrich you. Psalm 62. I'm looking at verse 12.
Also unto thee, O Yahweh, belongeth mercy, for thou renderest to every man according to his work.
Did you hear this? He renders to all of us according to what we do. This is set pattern. Yahweh God says his word. So how do we fit in there? But we have to know how Yahweh God has set this in order. He said, you're going to be judged by what you do. That's what he said. Because he makes mention the same thing in the book of Ecclesiastes about, he tells the young man, he says in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1, remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days cometh not, nor years draw near, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. He says, rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thy heart, and in the sight of thy eyes. But know thou that for all these things Elohim will bring thee into judgment. He said, you, in your strength, you might do crazy things in your youth. But remember, these are the things you will be judged by. So it's by the ways that we adopt ourselves. But Yahweh God said in Psalm 50, verse 23, Yahweh God, I'd like to begin 50, verse 23, said, whosoever, it says, and to him that ordereth his conversation aright, will I show salvation of Elohim. So he's saying that the conversation that you will have is important to you having a relationship with God. It says also in Psalm 119, verse 9, he makes mention of what we can do to have this relationship with our God that would be fulfilling. It said, wherewithal shall a young man cleaneth his ways, by taking heed thereto according to thy word. So Yahweh God is telling you that if it is to be clean, it is you have to take hold of the word of Yahweh. It says also in the book of Proverbs, Proverbs 16, Yahweh God tells you and gives you the main ingredient that is necessary for cleansing yourself. It says, Proverbs 16 verse 6, by mercy and truth iniquity is purged, and by the fear of Yahweh men departs from evil. So he says, by mercy and truth. And where do you find this mercy? And where do you find this truth? It says here, in our works, in Psalm 119, verse 142, the righteousness, thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy Torah is the truth. So it said, by mercy and truth, thy Torah is the truth. If you're going to find your ability to clean your iniquities, is by mercy and truth. And the Torah is the truth. And the mercy comes, let's go to Exodus 20. Exodus 20 tells you where the mercy is at. The mercy is at, and we go into Exodus 20 verse 6. And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. So the mercy is in the commandments, and the truth is in the law. Okay? Yahweh God in Psalm 140, Psalm 140, 145, Yahweh God says this. He says, 145 verse 18, he says, Yahweh is nigh unto them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. Why in truth? Because it is the Torah that thrives in you, that gives you that truth. So when you call upon Yahweh God and you have that truth, which is the Torah, you understand what I'm saying, which is the Torah, it allows you to have that truth. Because Yahweh says in Psalm 146, verse 8, he said, Yahweh loveth the righteous. Yahweh loveth the righteous. He loves you. And righteousness comes from what? Righteousness comes from keeping of what? The commandments. So when we understand that righteousness comes from keeping of the commandments of Yahweh God, Yahweh God is showing us something. Let's go to Isaiah. Isaiah 65. Because see, Yahweh God says he loved the righteous. Isaiah 65, verse 24. 65, verse 24. He says here,
And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear.
So Yahweh God said, because he said that he loves the righteous. And he said, and it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. Yahweh, that's why Yahweh said that that we have a God so nigh, no one has a God that is so nigh unto his people as Yahweh is close to the children of Israel. And he told Israel this, and he says that he is that close to us. That's why he says, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nation, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who has Elohim so nigh unto them, as Yahweh our God is in all that we call upon him for? See, in other words, by keeping the commandments, he's right here with you, and when you say something, he responds. You understand what I'm saying? All we had to do was utter it. That's why he said, and it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer. And while they are yet speaking, I will hear. That's why Yahweh said that. He told us there. But who will have this total opportunity? Let's go in Zephaniah. See, who will have this total opportunity to have that right to have that? See, that total opportunity is being given to one people so that Yahweh God will set things right. Because it is in what? Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 13. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity. See, nor speak lies. Neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make it them afraid. Why? Why? Because there's only one way back. It's not two, not three, not four. It's only one way back. And in Isaiah, he talks of this in Zephaniah 3:13 said, the remnant shall have a clean mouth, the utterance of the words of Yahweh God, to set in motion their freedom. Because there's only one way we can be free, and that is Isaiah 54, verse 14. Isaiah 54, verse 14.
In righteousness shall thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression, but thou shalt not fear. And from terror, for it shall not come near thee.
So how are we redeemed but in righteousness? That's all. In the word of your God that has set this great and awesome creation and movement. May Yahweh have mercy upon us. May Yahweh love us as we love him. For he has been most gracious and wonderful. May the Spirit rest upon you, the spirit of obedience. May we love Yahweh, love the word, and by his word are we established. Yahweh God is God, and there is none other than him. May we be truly thankful because Yahweh God has opened up unto us the way back, as it says here, and the vision of all has come to you in the words of a book. This vision is the Torah, and may Yahweh bless each and every one of us. Amen. Shalom, shalom, amanah.